Rotten onions are often tossed aside as waste, their pungent odor and slimy texture enough to send most people rushing to the compost heap or trash. Yet beneath that unappealing surface lies one of the most underestimated soil-building tools a gardener can use. Decomposed onion scraps, part of the allium family, offer a unique combination of properties that transform poor beds into thriving ecosystems. They attract earthworms in surprising numbers, feed the kinds of fungi that build humus, and even suppress certain soil-borne diseases that commonly plague vegetables. Far from being a nuisance, rotten onions represent a hidden source of fertility and resilience that many gardeners overlook. All organic matter eventually feeds the soil, but onions possess a distinct chemical profile that sets them apart from kitchen peels or general compost. They are rich in sulfur compounds, flavonoids, and sugars locked within their cell layers. As onions rot, these compounds are released in a form that soil organisms can immediately use. Sulfur in particular is essential for building amino acids and enzymes in plants, but it also plays a role in discouraging harmful pathogens. Unlike many vegetable scraps that decompose quickly and vanish without a trace, onions break down in stages. The slimy outer layers soften first, drawing microbial life into a frenzy of activity. The inner layers persist longer, creating a slow-release source of food. This staggered decomposition provides both a quick microbial boost and a sustained feeding system that keeps soil biology active for weeks. Earthworms are drawn to onion decomposition in a way that surprises many gardeners. The rotting layers emit compounds that may initially seem unpleasant to humans, but worms detect them as a signal of rich microbial growth. Where microbes thrive, worms follow, because bacteria and fungi form their primary diet. A rotting onion placed in compacted or struggling soil often becomes a gathering point, where worms converge to feed. This worm activity is more than a curiosity. Their burrowing aerates clay, loosens hardened layers, and draws surface material deeper underground. Each pass through the worm's digestive tract transforms decaying onion material into castings enriched with stable nutrients and beneficial microbes. A single onion scrap can therefore set in motion a cycle of worm-driven renewal that radiates outward into the bed. The allium family also has a profound relationship with fungi. While some of their sulfur compounds inhibit harmful molds and mildews, other sugars and compounds fuel the beneficial fungal species that create soil structure. Rotten onions, especially when buried in layers of mulch or mixed with leaf litter, quickly become colonized by white mycelial threads. This fungal growth binds soil particles together into aggregates, improving water infiltration and retention. It also forms networks that link plant roots, sharing nutrients and water in a web of underground cooperation. Gardeners who introduce rotten onions into their soil often notice the appearance of fungal strands sooner than with other scraps, a sign that decomposition is feeding more than just bacteria. One of the most overlooked benefits of decomposed onions is their role in limiting soil-borne diseases. The same sulfur compounds that give onions their strong odor act as mild antimicrobials in the soil. They do not sterilize the ground, which would be counterproductive, but they do inhibit some of the most persistent root pathogens such as fusarium and pythium. This creates a selective advantage for beneficial microbes, allowing them to colonize root zones without as much competition from harmful fungi or bacteria. Over time, repeated additions of onion scraps can shift the microbial balance of the soil toward one that favors plant health and resilience. For gardeners struggling with recurring wilts or root rots, onions may offer a natural layer of defense. The value of rotten onions depends on how they are introduced into the garden. Simply leaving them on the surface exposes them to drying winds or scavenging animals. To maximize their effect, they should be placed within the soil system where decomposition occurs under controlled conditions. One effective method is trench composting, where onion scraps are buried between rows or at the base of a bed. Here they decompose steadily, drawing worms and microbes to the root zone without disturbing the growing plants. Another approach is to mix onion pieces into a mulch layer. Combined with leaves or straw, they release nutrients gradually while fueling fungal development. Over time, the mulch layer becomes a living mat, cycling decomposition products directly into the soil below. For those with larger gardens, fermenting onions into a liquid infusion before application creates a concentrated microbial starter that can be poured directly into dry or compacted beds. Some gardeners hesitate to use onions, fearing their strong compounds might harm crops or beneficial life. While it is true that onions are not always welcome in traditional compost piles, especially when added in excess, the controlled use of rotten onions in soil is different. When spread out and balanced with carbon-rich materials, they enrich rather than disrupt. Worms adjust quickly to their presence, and fungal networks flourish. Problems only arise when onions are piled in thick layers without airflow or balance, leading to anaerobic conditions. Used wisely, they are an asset rather than a liability. In beds where soil has lost vitality, rotten onions offer a low-cost, readily available way to jumpstart life. Clay soils that resist aeration begin to loosen as worms respond. Sandy soils gain structure as fungi weave their networks through decomposed matter. Beds plagued with disease begin to recover balance as sulfur compounds reduce pathogen pressure. The transformation is not instant, but with regular applications over a season, gardeners report noticeable improvements in soil tilth, moisture retention, and root health. Plants grown in these conditions show stronger foliage and more consistent yields, signs that the underground ecosystem has regained function. Modern gardening often leans on packaged fertilizers and treatments, many of which bypass the living soil entirely. Rotten onions remind us that solutions can come from the overlooked corners of the kitchen, where waste becomes a resource. They embody the principle of working with biology rather than against it, feeding the organisms that ultimately sustain plant health. For those seeking resilient gardens in the face of climate stress, economic constraints, or degraded soils, onions provide a simple, regenerative tool. They require no cost beyond what is already in hand, and yet they deliver results that rival expensive inputs. Rotten onions may seem like scraps fit for disposal, but in the garden they become a foundation for soil revival. They attract worms, stimulate fungi, suppress disease, and enrich poor ground with minerals and organic compounds. Their hidden power lies not in forcing quick growth but in re-establishing the balance that soil requires to stay alive. Every gardener has access to this resource, and every garden stands to benefit from its use. The choice is whether to throw it away or to turn it into a living investment in the soil's future. For those who value sustainable, regenerative practices, rotten onions deserve a place among the most trusted soil-building allies. For more in-depth guides on hidden soil-building methods and practical regenerative gardening techniques, subscribe to HydroHaven and share this video with fellow gardeners. The more we spread this knowledge, the stronger our soils and our harvests will become.